Good afternoon. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive. It's 2 o'clock, and this is Monday, June 22nd. This is our daily Westchester County COVID update, and I'm here with Matt Honeycutt, who is the Vice President for Development for Feeding Westchester, and Emily Saltzman, who's Deputy Director of Operations on our team here in Westchester County. And we're going to be talking a little bit about food insecurity in Westchester County as part of what's happened with the COVID outbreak, the impact that it has on families economically, and then therefore the food insecurity that comes from that. But first, I want to give the daily numbers as we have them. As of today, from the tracker from New York State, on Monday, the 22nd of June, we have 557 active cases of COVID virus. That's on the basis of 34,557 total positives since the beginning of the contagion in the beginning of March. 557 active cases compares to where we were a week ago today, 951 active cases. 2 weeks ago today, we were at 1,800, let me correct that. A month ago today, we were at 1,862 cases. And 2 months ago today, we were at 9,389 active cases. So you clearly see a tremendous diminution over the last 2 months, 1 month, and even in the last week on these numbers. To 557 today, 951 a week ago, 1,862 a month ago, and 9,389 2 months ago. On hospitalizations, we have an estimate of 89 patients that are hospitalized for COVID today. A week ago, we had 160 patients hospitalized. A month ago, 367 hospitalized, and 2 months ago, 1,040 hospitalized. Same dynamic. From total tested, this now is a number that accumulates over time. We have tested, as of today, 239,131 tests for COVID. In almost all cases, they're one person per test. So on a base of 1 million people population, 239,191 cases means 23.9, almost 24% of Westchester County residents have been tested for COVID. That is approaching 1 out of every 4 Westchester people having been tested. And what we're seeing, the more that we test, the lower the percentage of people that are coming up positive for COVID. We had overnight 30-some-odd cases that tested positive out of almost 4,000 tests overnight. And that is a good sign of the reduction of the spread of the COVID virus. And we've had an accumulation of testing. Again, 2 weeks ago, we were at 200,000 tested. A month ago, we were at 133,000 tested. 2 months ago, 76,000 tested. And so today, 239,000 people tested for COVID, and that's a significant increase in the number of people tested. In terms of fatalities, at this point, we have total 1,415 fatalities. One person last night was lost due to COVID. 2 weeks ago, we were at 1,402, so we've lost 13 people in the space of 2 weeks. While that's still a tragedy, that is compares to where we were a month ago, where we had lost overnight 10 people. And if we go back 2 months ago, we lost 29 people overnight. Same scenario, the 21st to the 22nd. So all those factors, total number of active cases, hospitalizations, total amount testing, and the overnight fatalities, all of those indicators are heading in the right direction. And that is a good sign for us here in Westchester County. We're part of a Mid-Hudson Valley region that tomorrow enters Phase 3. And after we talk about our food insecurity program, we'll come back and tell you a little bit about what comes in Phase 3 tomorrow. Now, when the pandemic hit, there was clearly an economic impact that went along with the public health impact, the two major issues side by side all the way through. But the economic impact was not just an economic impact for the government or for businesses. They were for individuals. And many families, many people who were employed in the gig economy, many people who were employed working hourly wages in some of the service support industries that closed up, restaurants closed up, bars closed up, a host of things were shut down. There are many people that all of a sudden lost income and lost the ability, aside from being able to pay rent, being able to feed their family. And food insecurity has jumped up dramatically during the period of pandemic. So Feeding Westchester has been at the centerpiece of dealing with this issue in Westchester County through the many food banks that are around the county. And to sort of frame the issue of food insecurity. I'm going to ask Matt Honeycutt, as I introduced before, Vice President of Development for Feeding Westchester, to sort of frame some of that out. And then immediately after that, Emily Saltzman, who's on our executive team, Deputy Director of Operations, is going to talk about the food plan, the food distribution plan that's been put together by the county, how we intend to invest money to make sure that as many families as can be able to be fed during this difficult time, and to get through this period of time until the economy comes back more in a normal fashion. So first, Matt Honeycutt from Feeding Westchester. Matt?
Thank you, George. And I want to thank the county for all your support since this started. It's hard to believe, a little over 100 days now. You and I have been together talking about food in the county. We talk a lot about normal and what normal was, and do we get back to normal? And it's hard to believe that normal for a lot of people was not that good, and especially in our county, where 200,000 families struggled with food insecurity every day before the COVID crisis. 60,000 of those were children, and we believe that that number now may have increased as much as 40% going into this phase of the pandemic. And in a good year, feeding children in the summertime was hard to do. It's hard to get to them. Schools aren't open. They don't get to eat there twice a day. And that's always been a struggle and a challenge for us. And so it's now been increased and made even harder to try to tackle, given the challenges that we face with the COVID pandemic and the larger number of children out there. And so the support the county's given right now will help us do amazing things for children. It'll help us get more resources to our agencies and our partners around the county. We put the food out, but there are some incredibly hardworking men and women and volunteers on the ground every day, putting bags together, putting meals together, and getting it into the hands of families all across the county. And so I couldn't even begin to list all the names of all those people, but thank you all so much for meeting this crisis, meeting this need, and for staying with us this far into it. So again, thank you all so much for everything that you've done. I look forward to working with you on this one too.
Thank you, Matt. As Matt just mentioned, the need is much more broad-based during this crisis than it is normally, and normally there are certainly great demands. So it fell to us as a county government, working under the advisory of the state government, to put a plan together to try to figure out how are we going to take the resources that we have and try to make sure that more Westchester residents can be properly fed. This is a particularly difficult time because school has been out now for a number of months, and some of the camp programs are not going to happen, and that normally was a part of how some young people were being able to be fed every day, certainly for lunch and sometimes for breakfast and lunch. So to deal with this, we asked Emily, who has gotten extensive experience in state government as well as in here in the county government, to sort of tackle this, to work with the providers and to come up with a plan that we think is workable, that we can implement. So Emily Saltzman.
Thank you, County Executive. First, I do want to thank the County Executive for his support throughout this effort to help people in Westchester. In addition, Feeding Westchester jumped in and responded to an almost overnight double hit, as the County Executive and Matt said, of a health crisis as well as an economic crisis. In addition, they had to do what they had to do very quickly with fewer volunteers and some of the restrictions that make distributing food during a pandemic with an infectious disease very challenging. But they did it, and they did it incredibly well and incredibly fast. So this plan is in response to what I and my colleagues have seen by reaching out to food distribution programs, by talking to municipalities, nonprofit providers, and clergy about what the need is. And we tried to come up with a comprehensive plan that addresses a variety of needs. So this really covers four main areas. The first is to support both Feeding Westchester and local food pantries. It isn't free to provide a food pantry. There are administrative costs, food costs, other distribution costs, and many food pantries are operating much more frequently than they used to based on the need. So we wanted to support both Feeding Westchester, which is the major provider of food to local food distribution programs, as well as those local food programs that are there serving the community. In addition, what we found is that there are a number of homebound people, elderly people, people with health issues who were really afraid and didn't feel that they could go out and get food. Many of them have been calling our hotline or have been calling their municipality or other nonprofits to ask for help. And it really does make sense to try to provide food to people so that they don't have to go out and risk their health. So what we've done is put together a food distribution program to deliver meals to homebound people. That's a pilot program. We'll assess throughout and see how it goes. In addition, what we know is very important is to provide wraparound services to people who are home under isolation from a positive diagnosis of COVID. So we have another pilot program that will support people with food, with getting them whatever they need so that everybody in the household can remain in while the family deals with this illness. In addition, we know that the restaurant industry, which is a major, major, major center of our local communities, has been very badly impacted by the restaurant closures and the economic loss to them. So what we looked to do was create a program that would help restaurants and help community by encouraging them to partner with a nonprofit as the conduit so that restaurants could provide cooked food to feeding programs that could either have the food available for pickup or for home delivery. This is a program that we will be encouraging by municipality so we can keep track, but a restaurant in one municipality can support people in another. And finally, we wanted to make sure that there was somebody who knew about all the feeding programs in the county so that if a donor came by and said, I really want to provide support, or a volunteer or a corporation, we could say, we know where the feeding programs are in this particular community, and we're also regularly updating them as things change. And so that's the role of Susan Wiseman, who's going to be the food security coordinator for the county. We also have as major partners for us both 211 and our hotline, which is in the press release, and anybody who needs help with getting food or has questions are encouraged to call any of the people. Thank you very much.
The county's commitment of resources is $3 million to the program. It involves $750,000 in funding to Feeding Westchester, $750,000 in grants that will support local food pantries, and then there'll also be an allocation of money available to serve homebound individuals. We have grants for programs that will be supplied through DSS and some targeted programs. And also we're looking at some of the local innovative programs, such as the Nourishell Model Gift Card Program, and again, the partnership with the local restaurants. So this effort by the county government is meant to help incentivize some of the activities that are happening already so that they can reach more people than have been reached through the normal effort. And I want to thank and publicly recognize Emily for doing the plan. As I've said many times before at the press conferences I've had during my tenure, the chief elected official oftentimes announces these initiatives, and the perception is that all wisdom comes from the person who holds the corner office. The team of people that we have put together, Emily as a perfect example of it, are people who come here with their own drive and their own knowledge and ability, and they put that skill set to the task at hand, in this particular case, to help advance us dealing with food insecurity. But in so many other areas of our endeavors, it's a quality of the team of people that come together, and I've always believed that it's a group of people that accomplish these goals, not any one individual. So publicly, Emily, thank you for your work on this, along with Joan McDonald, who is the Director of Operations, and the other people within that area.
If I could just add the team, Diane Atkins,
Diane Atkins,
Martha
please.
Lopez, Shari Asher, and Crystal Collins for meeting a lot of the needs that have come through our hotline fast and furiously since the beginning.
Thank you very much, Emily. We appreciate it. And as we try to do in these updates, to give you an insight of what's happening in municipal governments and then within our government, as well as how we deal with all these multiple-headed issues, all of which come out of the COVID situation. We have food insecurity before the pandemic hit, but the pandemic made it worse and required us to take some of these extra activities. And we again thank Feeding Westchester for their leadership on this issue day in and day out, and all the different food pantries around the county that provide this help. Just want to highlight very briefly before we break our time. Over the past weekend, we had a very busy weekend. The weather was warm. We had expected thunder showers that never materialized, so we got full attendance for our various recreational activities. We've long since discussed in the county that we had opened up now well over a month and a half ago, approaching 2 months ago. The Bicycle Sunday program, which has been doing very well for itself. The golf program has been up and open for quite a while now. And our beaches at Playland and at Croton Point Park have been open on the weekend. We now, in this coming weekend, will move into week-long uses of our two beaches. Now, there are different schedules for each. Playland Beach will open up again this weekend, and then it will be open 6 days a week out of 7. And Mondays it's closed, open Tuesdays through Sundays. Now, that's the normal schedule that we have. The fact that some folks have been home, they may go to the beach expecting to see it open on a daily basis, but we hold that open primarily because we're competing with schooling, and schooling, the in-home schooling realities of things now has just come to closure this week. So we're able to open our beaches up and not have any competition between staying inside the house, doing the last bit of classwork for the session, and then being able to go out and enjoy yourself. And the same is true this weekend at Croton Point Park. Under normal circumstances, that park is open Thursdays. The beach is open Thursday through Sunday, and that will start this week and then will continue throughout the summer, Thursday through Sunday. We've been very fortunate that our Parks Department, with the help of our Public Safety Department, have done a terrific job in being able to keep the beaches open, moderate attendance, making sure people do the things that we have to do in this society today to stay healthy. And I think the proof of the pudding is in the numbers. There were questions 5, 6, 7 weeks ago about if we did Bicycle Sunday, would we be advancing the spread, what would happen in golf, what would happen if we open our beaches. And we've been able to do every one of those things and watch the same diminution that we've talked about. It's happening on a broader basis in just Westchester County. Pretty clearly in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, these states in this area of the country are seeing now a diminution in this part of the contagion. None of us believes that we're out of the woods. We hear stories about a second wave coming, and we're certainly going to try to be ready for it when it does come at whatever point in time that is. Other parts of the country now are going through what we went through earlier in the spring. And I think now they're seeing, perhaps at the time when we were going through it, they said, well, this hasn't come to our neck of the woods, so why is it only a New York problem? Well, it's not just a New York problem now. It's a nationwide problem. And, of course, we're always prepared to stand by our friends anywhere else in this nation. Doesn't matter the color of the state based on politics. If we can provide professionals, if we can provide ventilators, if we can provide any kind of assets to help a Texas or an Arizona get through this, then we're happy to do that. We think that's the proper thing to do in a nation of states where we are all trying to identify as Americans, not regionally. But we also think now that the decisions that were made to close down elements of the society, which have negative impacts, these economic impacts are not a joke, but they were the right decisions, because as great as our fatality number is, it would have been infinitely greater if we didn't do these things. And we have a first and foremost obligation is to help people stay alive, more so than any other single thing. If you're alive, then there's always hope. There's hope that you can recoup the economics. There's hope that you can go back, resume a normal life. But if we lose you, if you're gone, then there is no hope from our purposes. So I think we've made the decisions that help keep us going forward, and we hope that those will continue to be the right decisions to make. And no one can be cocky enough to think that we're out of the woods, because we're not out of the woods. However, with our recreational programs, as I've mentioned, we're going to be opening this weekend, as well as the beaches that are going to be open now this weekend, and then we'll continue to stay open on a weekly basis. We're opening the first 2 of our public pools, Saxon Woods in White Plains, just off the Hutch, and we're going to be opening our Sprain Ridge Pool Complex, which involves 2 pools off of Jackson Avenue in the Greenberg-Yonkers corridor. And it's harder to manage a public pool than it is a public beach, but we're going to do our best to manage the demand in those 2 locations to provide another recreational outreach for people. Next week, which will be the 4th of July weekend, Independence Day weekend, actually begins on the 3rd of July, which is the celebrated national holiday. We will then open 2 additional pools, Wilson Woods in Mount Vernon and Tibbetts Brook in Yonkers. We also open this weekend for the first time our miniature golf courses, which are located at Playland right off of the boardwalk at Saxon Woods, adjacent to the pool. The pool was closed this past weekend, but miniature golf was open this weekend. The pool will be open as well as miniature golf. And then also down at Tibbetts, where miniature golf is open already, and the pool will take another week. I have freely mentioned that all 3 of these mini golf courses need capital improvement. They work functionally as a good place for recreation, but all three need improvement. So when you go and you look at it and you say this could be better, you're right, it could be better, and we have to figure out how to allocate money to improve each of our facilities, as we did the Miller House, as we did the Spring Ridge Pool, as we're trying to do in a host of other different areas. All of those things are important. Final comment to make for today's update. Tomorrow begins Phase 3. Our numbers have been sufficient for the governor to pass the region that we're in, the Hudson Valley region, which is Westchester, Putnam, Dutchess, Rockland, Orange, Ulster, and Sullivan counties, to move us into Phase 3. Phase 3 will open up the indoor portion of dining. So we've been fortunate now to have outdoor dining. We've had good weather for these 2 weeks. A lot of communities like Larchmont, now Rye, Pleasantville have opened up public streets to have more outdoor dining opportunity. That opportunity now will grow because we will have the opportunity to have indoor dining as well. The indoor dining will be on a reduced amount of seating under normal circumstances, but that plus the outdoor dining will still give us more restaurant opportunities than we've had before. We will also see a number of personal care places open. If you've been waiting for the tattoo parlors to open, you're in good shape. Tomorrow they open. If you've been waiting for waxing or tanning, they open tomorrow. Nail salons will open tomorrow as well. And in each of these different cases, protocols that represent something a bit different from what you experienced when you were there last in February, the very early part of March, but at least they're getting back into business. It's opening back the economy a little bit more. And with every one of those things, hopefully we'll move in the right direction. There's also now an increase in the number of people that can gather in a group from 10 to 25. Now, there's any number of examples where people have gathered in excess of that number for a variety of different purposes, but the official limitation of groups now rises from 10 to 25. We hope that'll be helpful for a lot of different organizational groups. We'll check to see if we have any questions from our friends in the media. And since we do not, we've been doing these press conferences remotely because we don't want the press to feel obliged to have to physically come put themselves potentially in any harm's way. We look forward to the day when we can have the press back in the room for them. And to some extent, we have that, as we did this morning when we announced our plans to deal with the issues of reform and reinvention of our various law enforcement entities. So with that, I'm going to wish you a very good day. Stay safe. We'll be back tomorrow for another update. We'll continue these updates until 2 weeks from today, Monday, July 6th. That will be the last day of Phase 3 before we enter Phase 4. And then at that point in time, we will end the daily updates. We'll update as necessary from time to time. Hopefully, we'll continue to be on the right path. You'll stay safe, and we'll see the economy open back up, the contagion reduce, some progress made on some of our other issues, and we'll go on living our lives, which is really what we all hope for. I'm George Latimer. Thanks for tuning in. Stay safe.